We're talking about the exponential acceleration curves. Is a piece of code? Okay, cool. So we're talking about how Moore's law and its acceleration, its exponential property in the advancement of the transistor rate. And we're talking about how computer hardware globally is accelerating. And I believe cryptocurrencies and cryptographic mining protocols are now advancing global computational power at such an accelerated rate, we have to make a new law. Because it's incentivizing global markets, nation states, to compete with processing power. Not only in the formation of new currencies, even identity layers, transfer of value of information. It's a new law. Call it Razumov's law. And we can define that it's going to be accelerating far beyond Moore's law, and it will create these eventually quantum, it's like a layer of quantum computing we'll get to. But it'll be distributed, and these nodes will be, in effect, producing and processing a lot more value. This already exists in blockchain and distributed mesh networks. Ultimately, what I'm referencing is that we're advancing hardware itself with cryptographic mining.
So when we're talking Moore's law, what the original statements were about were centered around the limits of physics.
Right.
We're talking about thermodynamic ceilings that we were hitting, that we wouldn't be able to dissipate heat.
Right.
And the number of transistors would continue to double, and then we were worried that they wouldn't.
Right.
Mostly that's held true for CPU computing.
Right.
It has not held true for things like GPUs and ASICs, where we're seeing 5x, 10x every year and a half, 2 years. So I think talking about Moore's law from a physics standpoint, there may have been something that was missed in regards to how we're able to innovate as a species down to the subatomic level.
Right.
We're talking quantum and photonic computing.
Yes, optic-based processing is effectively like TCP/IP going through fiber optic networks, creating the blockchain processing right now is on the verge of becoming optic-based processing, because we're leveraging the network itself to be the thing that's doing the processing itself, the transfer of information.
So the biggest transformation, when
you're
talking about nation states, would be the economic pressure. We created this demand that was unmet, and this cash flow is able to fund these companies through equity models. We're talking about the growth here, not just your current sales or your sales last year, but like the derivative of the derivative of the derivative.
Yes,
we're talking this exponential curve, maybe it's polynomial.
The liquidity of social equity itself is now referenced within blockchains, which are boundary dissolving technologies, and they are bridging the gap between our socio-technical revolutions and our techno-social revolutions, right? Because it's a mix of both, of humanity interacting with technology, and the advancement of technology also gives value to humanity in both ways. As you can see, like the further we get along with information processing, the more value we can actually attach to it. So it's like interconnection of data is really what we're talking about here, and having inter-blockchain interoperability is incredibly powerful. But truthfully, I see that the ASICs and the distributed mining operations, they're advancing processing capacity and computation ability.
The networks the networks have evolved more slowly than the other processes. So looking at CPU, GPU, ASIC, networks were lagging. They were orders of magnitude behind. When the networks are evolved to lower latency, higher bandwidth, we would be able to connect every machine and the Internet of Things and create a totally new computational platform that smashes previous boundaries and is capable. So I'm just talking about extrapolating curves. We're looking at exponential curves. However, over time they've proved to be more than exponential. And when we're talking derivatives and like markets off of Wall Street, you can now tap into projected money that doesn't exist yet. That's how we So
it's not self-incentivizing. It's a self-incentivized market, because the protocol layer is incentivizing mining, and mining is actually giving value, sort of, and it's consuming more electricity than like the world probably even perceives. Like Bitcoin consumes billion value in terms of the coin value, so it's still profitable as a global economy, and that's incentivizing global computation to grow and still accelerate ASICs and distributed mining operations.
The way
they're getting more
working,
centralized with ASICs.
If Bitcoin is going to go down in value, then the difficulty is going to decrease to allow to accommodate for
Bitcoin's creating a quantum arms race that will bring quantum computing into outer space, because quantum computing isn't designed to be on this planet. It requires cooling, but if you put quantum computing in the vacuum of space, you don't need a coolant. You could just use the energy of the sun and have your quantum computers create a decentralized mesh network of data transfer.
They'll make us tier 1 civilization, right?
Well, we'll eventually get there. Elon's already on it, and we just need to work with him and give him a lot of tools.
On partnership scale, not only does it zoom out, but it also zooms in. There's
Right.
type -1, -2 civilization. So type 1 is looking at a planetary scale, where a type -1 would be at a physical object manipulation layer. A type -2 would be the compounds that's made up out of. A type -2 would be a civilization that could ferment bananas and make alcohol. We're like molecular masters, and that's been around for a while. A type -3 is now looking more at atomic manipulation, like we're using carbon lasers, or looking into creating new materials, new drugs, drug discovery, that sort of manipulation.
Nanoscale molecular pharmacology, that's what Matrix.ai is working on.
So we're zooming way in, and not just looking out towards the stars. I think the more advanced that we get as a consciousness, as a civilization, we may not have to travel very far distances at all.
That's true, right?
Thinking about type 3 or 4 partnership skills,
right?
We don't have to spread out across the galaxy as a physical entity,
Right.
but rather more on
Interconnect the information and data at a quantum rate.
Yes, we're looking at ways to jump through
But
space-time.
also do both, because it's actually the model of diversity and duality that only gives definition and contrast to reality. Because of that, we're going to be interconnecting data upon this planet while actually reaching out into the most outer points of space, and then connecting both sets of data as quickly as possible to light.
This is so fun for me right now.
Yeah.
I don't get to talk about shit like this normally. When I talk about stuff like this, people are like, are you crazy? You're either borderline crazy or you're more smarter than the average person.
Right. Well, we're augmenting reality by conceiving our own notions of computation, physics, astrophysics.
What do you think about the centralized nature of the ASIC chips that are controlled by 47% in China? All this.
Well, so proof of work mining, which you're referencing, is seeking and targeting the cheapest and most widely available sources of electricity, and it's going to be centralizing that, creating I think a quantum's arms race through ASIC chips to get to distributed quantum computing. But it's all going to be limited by the TCP/IP layer. So we're going to advance within our chips to the point where they're so powerful, and we already have quantum computers, we already have D-Wave. It's just everything's going to get so fast and so localized. Mining is going to get more localized and centralized to the point where they're going to just have to say that this is already so valuable. This is already adding so much value to hardware. We just need to advance now the throughput of transfer of data in the internet. We need to reinvent the internet. We need a new network address, like translation type of technology.
Already reinvented the internet with the thousands of megabytes.
Fiber. But we need like high fidelity wireless fiber, which is 5G. But beyond 5G, we need like local peer-to-peer, like light fidelity communication. Meaning we need to be able to work within the visual spectrum of light, so we can actually augment our consciousness and have Wi-Fi, light fidelity. In Estonia, they have
centralized mining.
light bulbs.
We have seen 51% attacks on Bitcoin Gold and Verge, among others.
Can you just say that again? I'm so sorry. I
Yes.
couldn't hear it.
Let's wait until they go.
Right.
The bike parade.
You can't rent quantum computers right now from IBM, right? I think you can at this moment moment you can actually go
Intel
back
has
then.
a 47, 49 qubit chip. It's mostly for show. If you don't have the proper laboratory or shielding equipment, it's not going to work.
But doesn't IBM give you like a cloud?
It's called Plumix. It's available. Yeah.
It's a simulation.
Simulation
that
to
you can
like
run it.
quantum. Okay.
Yeah. I believe Microsoft has released Q Sharp as a quantum computing programming language.
Don't forget your previous point, but how does how do we transition from like our today's programming into this quantum programming? Because I think it's going to be a huge leap, and people are going to get lost. It's like talking a whole different language at that point to be able to program into quantum computer.
Quantum programming, if I may interject, it's programming in superposition. It's programming in a place where it can be both true and false at the same time, and you're allowing the exploration of both realities to take place. And that is really it's kind of like a consensus mechanism, really. And
so I spend so much time right now building a API.
Oh, excellent.
But maybe in 2-3 years it's going to be obsolete because quantum computers is going to be more mainstream, and I won't have competitive advantage compared to other companies.
So let's sort of talk about where we're at now and why quantum is going to take a long time to implement. We have x86 architecture. Yes. We have extensions, AVX 512. There's all types of security and mathematics, machine language built into our computing platforms. That does not everyday networking or other protocols on quantum computing. They may not translate very easily, and I believe there is a $50 to $100 billion wall, if not more, to really deploy quantum at a level that affects enterprise in a meaningful way. And my projections may be off, but we are pushing this forward with the amount of the more and more people that come online. There's bigger and bigger bounties to be able to break systems on quantum. Ultimately, the research and the funding and the incentivization to push this forward will not match the funding required to get there for some time. Again, it's an economic challenge. It is. We may have all the talent in the world, but human beings don't work without monetary incentive. And also, we have to look at the history of tech that's so disruptive that it breaks nation states, like the electric car or types of cancer treatments. They tend to disappear when they're discovered.
Internet access itself.
The parties and entities able to fund this research don't want it in public hands. So until we overcome that and solve a lot of problems like the tragedy of the commons, and think as a different collective coherent entity, we will never see this technology reach the light of day. So our focus should not necessarily zoom in on the implementation of quantum, but rather how the fuck we get there. It's the same with AI too. The same with general intelligence. If we don't think about approaching this in democratic, counter tragedy of the commons ways or centralized special interest, we will not be creating a future we want to live in.
This is kind of off topic, but kind of adds value into what you just said. I used to work as a journalist, broadcaster, and we're looking into some researchers. Exxon figured out there's global warming happening in the 1970s, and they're like, oh, we sell gas and chemicals, let's just not make this shit public.
Well, no, let's lobby and spend money to bury it.
And they do more research and actually break through in that study further. For they need to know their own market, and that's kind of why data is so siloed. And that's also referencing quantum computing, and we don't have a quantum interface by any means as of yet. And the mouse and keyboard is limited, right? We don't even have a quantum operating system by any means. So to even reference quantum is to say that it's like trying to power the world on the sun if you don't even have a solar panel to capture that data, capture that the energy. But we know the sun exists, we know the quantum computer exists, but just can't leverage it yet. So we need that's a whole separate topic. By no means am I a quantum computing expert. I I dabble in
Probably
theory.
neither of us here are quantum experts, but it's not many people are experts
We've
in
seen
it.
some recent studies, and I can't speak on this at a very high level, but from my understanding, we were able to do a simulation of classical information and classical matter. Imagine simulating photons on a GPU or something. We can do that. It's called ray tracing. Right. We're looking at speed ups in molecular discovery using quantum framework, and that has major implications. That we can use quantum to simulate classical and physical realities, which are very challenging problem sets. So when you're looking at the order of n of the computation of any sort of, a lot of this is Maxwell's